Welcome to Snowplow Driver Needed, a very important discussion. We are so happy to have you with us today. First, I want to thank you. This is our last of our 2021 New England Chapter Connects webinars. I want to thank you all for making these so successful. You keep attending, so we're going to continue to have them. Moving into 2022, we're going to offer 6 of them for you. So we really look forward to chatting with you about topics you want to hear. This topic today is so timely, and we really look forward to you all enjoying the conversation today and finding solutions to some of the challenges that you're facing. I also want to thank our sponsors. It's really important for the chapter to be able to have support from our sponsors to offer these kind of opportunities. And as you can see, we have an incredible group of sponsors that's there for us all the time. You know, I'm a member of the Education Committee, as well as our moderator today, Tom is. The Public Works Awareness Committee and Education Committee have come together around these webinars, and we look forward to that collaboration in the future. And our sponsors are a big part of why we can have that happen. You are the panel today. We want to hear from you all. We all are facing similar challenges in this, and some of you are doing very proactive work trying to find solutions. I could not be more delighted to introduce you to Tom Mazelewski, who's the foreman for the Public Works Department in the town of Ellington, who has so graciously volunteered to moderate this discussion and get you started. But you're the roundtable portion, so we look forward to hearing from you. So I'm going to kick it right over to Tom.
Okay, good morning, everybody. First, I'd like to thank Donna Shea and the Connecticut T2 Center for the opportunity to moderate today and for hosting this great discussion because it is very pertinent and timely. My name is Tom Mazelewski. As it was mentioned, I'm the foreman for the Ellington Public Works Department here in Ellington, Connecticut. Been in public works for about 5 years and in the snow removal business for about 18 years. This is the first time I've experienced a shortage like this when it comes to personnel. So just like you, I'm going to be taking notes through the discussion today to try to gain ideas on how to deal with the shortage. As it was mentioned, this is your roundtable. You guys are the panel, guys and gals. I'm just going to be here to hopefully keep things on track and to fill in the gaps if it's necessary. Please feel free to raise your hand or type into the chat box. We'll be monitoring that the whole time and answer questions or start discussion based on your feedback. With that being said, I'm going to open the floor up with this question. For many reasons, municipalities and state agencies are in need of winter operations staff. From large trailer snowplow drivers to sidewalk shovelers, we're seeing a significant shortage in personnel. While we can talk all day long about the reasons for the shortage, it's not very productive. Today, I want to focus on the solutions. So what are some of the ways that your agencies are handling filling the void? And anybody can go ahead and unmute and speak if you're ready.
Hey, Tom, this is John in East Hartford. I guess I'll kick off the conversation if that helps. Specific to what we're doing for personnel, we have the ability, because of the size of our department, that we could utilize personnel outside of the traditional division. So outside of highway, I also have personnel in parks and sanitation, engineering, and then beyond that, we build a roster of folks who have commercial driver's licenses or folks who don't have them but have the experience in plowing from our fire department. We actually have a couple guys in our building department and health department. So like many of you, knowing where all those personnel are, knowing how to reach them, and then hoping that you have the collective bargaining language that allows you to sort of reach out to them is sort of our solution. Beyond that, we keep a roster, as many of you may be going through, we are as well, a lot of turnover, right? A lot of the longtime employees are leaving. We're getting a lot of new employees. So as a result of that, we have a lot of recent retirees. So I, had done it last year, actually both last year and the year before, and I expect we'll do it again this year, probably to a greater degree. We'll keep a roster of, a half a dozen recent retirees that live in the area, that are flexible and are willing to come in, that have maintained their commercial driver's license. And our contract language allows us to be able to do that, which is a huge step in the right direction. If you've not done that before, that'd probably be the first place to look to see if it's even permissible. Those seem to work really well for us. I'll be honest, I haven't gauged the interest yet on whether or not anybody is willing to do that this winter, but I suspect we'll have enough people that could give us some relief. My real concern actually has a little less to do with people and a little more to do with equipment. And I know that's not the focus of today, but I just wanted to throw that out for discussion as well. I think I've got some solutions on how I can get people in here, but if my equipment goes down and I don't have any spare pieces or parts to make up the gap, I'm more concerned with the supply chain problems that we might have and how quickly we can get that up. That, unfortunately, I don't have a solution to, because when I look at the contractors that we've used in the past to fill not only the personnel gap, but the equipment gap, I'm not seeing that those vendors are there. We've put out 2 snow bids, RFPs this year. We did one in late summer, got no responses, and we just did another one and it hasn't closed yet, but it doesn't look like we're gonna get responses there either, because I think all the vendors that we would have expected to hire are being gobbled up by the state or just not available.
That's a great point, John. Thanks for bringing that up, by the way. The driver shortage is a real thing too, but the massive equipment parts shortage is huge too, and I guess that might have been overlooked a little bit about the discussion topic today, because that's a real thing. You can get all the people for the seats that you can find, but if you don't have the seats, that doesn't really serve the purpose. I wanted to ask you, could you speak a little bit about maybe the contract language that allows, I know in Ellington, we have a policy where any union employees have to be called in first before any non-union employees. And I would think that'd be sufficient, but I'm curious to know what your policy says.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's less a policy and it's more contract language and HR language. And you're right, Tom, it says exactly that. In order for us to reach into the reserve bag and bring folks who are retirees to come back and do the work, we would have to have utilized all of our personnel. So the expectation is, and what we're planning for on the personnel shortages, if we get hit with another wave of COVID and the people are out, presumably anyone that I could make use of, I would bring in, but only then when they're all extinguished would we would go to a retiree. So I don't envision a time reaching out to a retiree where I haven't already taken advantage of everybody here.
That's great. Thanks a lot, John. Anybody else like to chime in?
And the same goes for Bridgeport. We have a large city just like East Hartford. We utilize our sanitation, recycling, parks, and as he mentioned, we use the fire department as well. As you all are aware, a lot of firemen have CDL license. So we reached out to all the firemen, and to be honest with you, I was surprised we had 16 that were interested in snow plowing, and the majority of them already had snow plowing experience. Now, I know a lot of cities and towns are concerned that when you pay them this overtime, the rates are a little higher than your employees most of the time. So I know that all the budget and pencil pushers are going to be afraid that, you know, oh, this is going to go towards their retirement. It's going to build up the retirement. But to be honest with you, they'll only be used in emergencies. You always have to have a backup plan. So they're not going to be used every day, every snowstorm. They're going to be used when you don't have sufficient staff to fill your trucks. Another thing we did is, you know, we had issues in the past when you had these large storms, your trucks aren't pushing that snow. So we every year release 3 payloaders for 3 months. It's been very useful because when your payloaders go down, you need something to back them up. So every year we release 3 payloaders. We had some success with the on-call for snow plowing bid that we put out. We had 6 vendors respond. Only 3 of them are larger vendors. The other 3 are mostly for sidewalks and parking lots.
Hey, Craig, question for you. Are those companies that you've dealt with before, or are they new vendors to you?
They're mostly vendors that we used in the past. You know, for example, Cherry Hill is a very large company. So Cherry Hill always responds. We have a local vendor that runs our landfill. He has a couple loaders with plows, which is very useful. So he responded as well. And I don't know if anyone's aware of Cariotti, but Cariotti Construction has a lot of equipment, and they responded as well.
Great, Craig. Thanks a lot.
And we also, I don't know if anyone else put this out there, but it seems not to be working, but it was worth a try. We put out on-call snow plowing, like a seasonal opportunity for 25 to 30 an hour on an on-call basis. You know, our thought process was when people are out of work during the winter, they're not doing construction, they're retired, they might say, hey, I want that opportunity. Call me when you need me. I did not get one application. So then I put out another seasonal opportunity, 40 hours a week for 2 to 3 months. I mean, we can utilize them all week. We got so much work here. So $25 an hour, 40 hours a week for 2 to 3 months. And I got one application so far, but we just put that out a week ago. So I'm hoping I get at least a couple more applicants. So the fire department was very helpful. I was actually surprised I got 16 people interested with CDLs, and a lot of them do snow plowing. So, you know, that's a very big help. I know a lot of people are concerned using their fire department, but we only utilize them when they're off. So obviously when they're working, we can't utilize them. So, but we did get 16 people, and that's a large number. So I'm very happy with that.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Is anybody having any trouble with some mandatory overtime requirements or anything like that? I've heard some rumors out there about existing staff not being willing to come in for snow plowing events because they're not required to. Anybody want to speak to that? I know in Ellington we've got a mandatory overtime policy from December 1st through April 1st. And I recently heard even this morning that there was an issue in another town where there's people that are just, they're waiving the opportunity for overtime.
Hey, Tom, I can speak on that.
Well, sure.
We had the same issue. Employees were only required when the mayor declared a snow emergency. That was in their original contract. But I renegotiated the contract where, as the director, I could say it's an emergency. I need you guys to come in. So it doesn't have to be declared by the mayor, because we all know snow emergencies are usually, they only declare them if it's over 6 inches, really. But most of the emergencies could be black ice. You might need everybody out there sanding.
Right.
Don't have to be a snow emergency. It could just be you get a freezing rain, everything turns to sheet of ice. You can't have guys say, I'm not coming in. It's not a snow emergency. Hey, it's an emergency. You're coming in. But the way I got around it was I'm getting you a direct order. Plain and simple. If you come in, you don't, you're going to labor relations or suspended you. So that's what I did.
Thanks a lot, Craig. Anybody else want to chime in? No? Okay. What about incentives for contractors? I know there's kind of a stigma out there that if you get hired on as a contractor for a municipality and there's 4 inches of snow on the ground, and as a contractor you haven't been called in yet, but you're required to have multiple trucks possibly ready and available and registered and insured for the year for being a contracted snow vendor, and then not getting called out to do the work. That's a little frustrating. So is anybody providing incentives for contractors? No.
The incentive I provide is if I do call them in, they're guaranteed 4 hours, but they're not going to get called in every storm. Like you mentioned, 4 inches. Usually we're not going to bring in private contract.
Okay. Kevin, I see you got your hand up, Kevin Kelly.
Yeah, I was just going to add to that I had to make a deal with my contractor that came in, and anything over 2 inches, we got to call them in now. Last year, I didn't do that. I just brought them in for the major storms. This year, it's going to be just about every time, just to keep them.
Very good. Thank you, sir. David Field, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, so we have incentives for them signing up, early season sign up, and a performance bonus if they show up for all the storms they get called in for. So they get 4 hours on either end as an incentive to help, take care of some of those insurance costs. But generally, along the lines of calling him in or not, we've been calling him in for everything. So in the past, we might not have, but now we really have to. And basically, us calling them in basically whenever we go has really built some trust, and we've gotten people returning and people jumping from other communities over to us that weren't calling out as much.
Yeah, I think that's really great to provide that to a contractor just so you can keep them. That's very important. Amy, I see you have your hand up.
Hi there. So I'm with the city of Holyoke here in Mass, and we do the same thing with the 4 hours. It's a standard 4 hours. But when we do call in contractors, we kind of start the clock, and if they arrive within the first hour, they get an additional hour's pay. And we also have 2 of our larger contractors, or larger trucks, I'm sorry, that are considered first response. So whenever our guys come in, these 2 particular contractors are called in at the same time. Other than that, ours come in at 3 inches or more.
Do you have to have all your union employees in prior to calling in contractors?
With our staff, we make a first response list. So they're on call pretty much, or on standby, I'm sorry, pretty much from November 6th this year till the end of March. So yes, the whole first response list is called in first, along with our first responders, the 2 first responders that are contractors, and then everybody else is once it's at 3 inches.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Anybody else want to speak to incentives for contractors?
So one thing that we've been doing for a number of years is actually providing they get a minimum per year. So if they don't get called in for snow plowing, they don't achieve that minimum, they will get paid. But the caveat that we've added now is we actually get services in exchange for that minimum. So we'll usually take them in as some hauling contracting or whatnot, but at the snowplow rate. So, which is obviously a little bit higher than a hauling rate typically. So that's the incentive that we have in currently.
So I know you guys do leaves over there in South Windsor. Is that something you use them for, is to haul your leaves?
We don't typically use it for the leaf portion of it, but we always find something that we can utilize them for.
That's cool. Thank you all very much, Marco. Anybody else? Okay. There's a lot of communication about public outreach regarding this whole shortage and the potential lack of services or delay in services or anything like that. And there's been some really good efforts. I think we're going to drop a couple things in the chat box there. One from Durham, New Hampshire, who created a great kind of branch off to their website on how they provide services. It's a very, very nice overview. I highly recommend every one of you click on it and check it out. I know I'd love to build one for Ellington because it was so well done, very inspiring. The other one was done by Mara Lee up in Vermont. It was a great kind of like article that she wrote for a public outreach. And I believe that's down there in the chat box. Yes, it is as well. It's a great read. And I believe Mara Lee has given permission for people to go ahead and kind of personalize that and use it. I see she's on today, so speak up if that's not the case, please, Mara Lee.
Yeah, feel free to either use it as is with my information in there or use it as a template and make it your own, delete all the New Hampshire details and share it out with your state or local agency information. The goal is to try to get the message out there so that communities are hearing it across platforms that this is a challenge being felt in no one specific area, but really regionally and even nationally.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much. I know I spoke with Donna Shea yesterday about some local outreach to local colleges. I don't know if you wanted to mention that at all, Donna, or just just kind of throw it out there, but it's pretty
Sure.
important.
Yeah, I'm happy to mention it. The feedback from some of our advisory members, including our chair, Kevin Kelly, was that, if we could help get the word out to the technical schools, to the community colleges, even to the high school counselors about the opportunities for public works careers, to help in this shortage as well as future, steering them into some amazing opportunities in public works. So we're putting together some outreaches for the technical schools and postings for the community colleges, and very happy to help with that, and using part of the great work that Marilee did and that we kind of took as a template for Connecticut to get the information out about the shortage, but also the opportunities. So I think that's just something everyone can really do, with their contacts.
Thanks, Donna.
Sure.
Anybody else have some out of the box ideas? I know there's social media and town websites and all that good stuff, but love to hear some
Hey,
new
Tom.
ideas. Yes.
Just really quick, I want to clarify with everyone what was dropped in the chat box. The Word document that T2 put in the chat box is actually what we were discussing, what Marilee's press release was. So for a copy of that, which also has language regarding APWA on that would be the resource that they use.
Cool. I see in the chat box, Mark Lombardo from Waterbury mentioned when we talked about mandatory overtime for snow operations, are we talking about plow drivers or also looping in the guys that shovel and sand our municipal walkways? I know in Ellington, it's mandatory for all DPW employees. I don't know if anybody else can speak to that, but. Okay, I guess I'll kind of jump back to the public outreach. Does anybody have any new stuff that they want to share as far as public outreach goes? Some out of the box ideas?
This is City of Bridgeport, Connecticut. What we did is we put some yard signs out where people could actually scan them on their phone. I know it's been done in restaurants where you take a picture of the scanner bar and it goes automatically to the HR with the application and all the information. So we put those out at our local parks that are visited very often. We put it out in front of our city hall and actually at our amphitheater, because a lot of people visit our new amphitheater.
That's great. Yeah, that's a great thing. Something as simple as a yard sign with a QR code that takes you right to, the jobs posted for that town. It's awesome. Kevin, you got your hand up again?
Yeah, I wanted to comment on throwing the idea out to the schools and the community colleges. I think our challenge, and I don't have the answer, but I think our challenge is going to be, how do we train these new people to get the CDL license and be the drivers? And I was just reading an article this morning about the trucking industry and how they're having an identical problem. So, I don't know if the answer is to reach out to some of our education facilities and see if they can develop programs. But I think that's going to be our challenge, is the next generation coming in. We have to come up with a new source of employees. So that's just my comment. Thanks.
Very good. Thanks, Kevin. That is actually a really good point, because there are some new regulations coming out February 7th regarding CDL license or obtaining your CDL license. Of course, it makes it a little bit more difficult on everybody. In case you all weren't aware, February 7th, 2022, there's a new regulation stating that any person trying to obtain a CDL license or upgrade their CDL license has to go through entry-level driver training. This is in Connecticut. Well, this is federally regulated. It's not just Connecticut, is what I'm saying. It's by the FMCSA. And I guess the good news is your agency or somebody in your agency could self-certify as an instructor and provide that entry-level driver training to staff that were interested in getting a CDL. Otherwise, they would have to go through a registered entry-level driver training provider. I know here up in Summers, we've got New England Tractor Trailer Training School. So that might be a great opportunity to post some jobs, people that are obtaining their CDLs, get them right there as they exit the building, you know, hey, we need some plow drivers or something like that. But anybody else want to speak to that?
We do actually have a few, we have a hand raised and we have a couple things in the chat box. Lisa from Vermont wants to know if anyone here is not union, if their agencies are not union.
I saw, I don't mean to pick on you, but I saw Todd Rowland in the chat box, and I don't believe their Summers is union.
That is correct. We're not union. This is Todd from Summers here. We're the outlaw, we're the unicorn, I think, in the group.
And
Todd, we're also not union in Lewiston, Vermont, so you're not the only one.
Oh, good. I'm not
So
alone.
we're Spikehorn now instead of a unicorn.
There you go.
all right, and then we have Craig's hand up.
With the city of Bridgeport, Connecticut, we renegotiated the union contract recently, and the city will reimburse the employees for getting their CDLs. So that was part of the new contract. Once they get their CDLs, and the director obviously has to approve it, they will reimburse them for whatever they paid for that CDL license. So that was part
are
of
they required? Are they required to work for you for a certain amount of time afterwards? Because it's quite the opportunity to offer somebody, just have them leave a month later.
Obviously that was discussed. So they would definitely have to work with us for a minimum of 5 years if we're gonna pay for their side, for their CDL.
Yeah.
And it has to get approved obviously through me. They just don't all go at once and get CDLs because we have a budget. So obviously we're not gonna approve 20 people to get their CDLs and we don't have the budget to pay for them. And obviously, you know, you're gonna have a maximum and minimum. Some of them might want to get all the bells and whistles, and next thing you know, you get a bill for $5,000. So obviously, we're gonna each case is differently, but as we review them, and there's actually two locations around us that provide CDL training. So we have discussed with them as well what we're doing, so they're working with us as well, so to give us a better price.
Thanks again, Craig. I see Marco's hand is up.
Hold on one second. So we do have a question that came in before Marco's hand came up. Mark Lombardo, City of Waterbury. When we talk about mandatory OT for snow operations, are we talking about plow drivers or also looping in the guys that shovel and sand our municipal walkways?
Yeah, I had mentioned that in Ellington, we're mandatory overtime from every DPW employee. I don't know if anybody else wanted to speak to that. If they separate out, like if they have a custodians that are in a different union or something that handles the sidewalks or something to that effect. No. All right, Marco, you're up.
So one challenge that we found typically in the past, motivation enough was the opportunity for advancement once they got their CDLs, current employees that is, typically our newer employees. You know, that motivation of being able to make a little extra money was enough, but what we're finding is some of them still haven't put in that time to get their CDLs or that effort. Even with the offer of helping them out, doing it kind of in-house. So one thing we've added for new hires now is it's mandatory to get your CDL within 1 year, or else you know, you're hitting the road, so to speak. So hoping that, of course, that doesn't fix anything for the short term, but hopefully that'll help things in the future here for us.
Fantastic, thank you.
I got a question for Marco. Hey, Marco, for instance, you said you give them a 1 year probationary period to get their CDL. Now, I know hard workers are hard to find. And you might have an employee that's he's not a good test taker. You might need more time. Are you able to extend that probationary period if you had to?
Yeah, we can extend any probation, even currently. We have all of our employees have a 1-year probation period, but we never required them to have their CDL within a certain time frame. So we've just added that caveat in there, which gives us the ability to either send them down the road or like you said, if you have an employee that they're a great employee, and they're working towards it, at least you can see the effort. And yeah, we do have the ability to extend that probation if it's warranted, that is.
We all know how difficult it is with getting appointments through motor vehicle as well. So.
Right, but obviously they know it coming in. They do have a year, and we want to see them working towards it. If they're dragging their feet, well, then they may have to have that ramification, whatever that might be. So, and I guess we'll have to assess that. Hopefully we won't encounter that, but we'll have to assess that as we go. But we do have the ability to extend that probation.
Marco, are you gonna have anybody on staff self-certified to offer the entry-level driver training?
Not at this point. We'll see how things go. They are, as we hire, we do let them know that they're on the hook themselves to even get the proper training if that requires them to go to New England Tractor Trailer or whatnot. We'll see how everything evolves. Obviously, we're all struggling to fill positions and to get. We're not seeing the number of candidates we once did. So we'll see how things evolve.
I guess, Marco. We should get that. David Simpson, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, thank you. In Waterbury, we've done a couple of different things to encourage, I'll use the term maintainer, to move up and get their CDLs. In fact, we've taken one of our more experienced drivers who's a good instructor. I'll pay this person overtime to work with any staff interested in getting their CDL. The staff has to be committed to, if it's a Saturday, or we'll do it during normal work hours if we can, but I do provide them the assistance in-house to help them get their CDL.
We do the same thing here, David. Thank you for bringing that up. That's a great thing to offer. If you have a willing employee that's going to train some people to move up, that's a great opportunity to offer them a little bit of bonus. Anybody else? But there was some discussion about insurance policies and potential issues with bringing in subcontractors or bringing in quote unquote per diem employees. Does anyone have some specific language that they would recommend potentially for subcontractors or anything like that? I know I've got Donna was kind enough to reach out to Kerma here in Connecticut, and some highlights of that discussion, I guess, was obviously having a contractor and agreement that'll specify that the contractor's insurance will be the primary to respond to all damages or injury caused by their vehicles. The minimum coverage limits would be spelled out clearly in the agreement. There would be a hold harmless agreement adding the municipality as an insured on the contractor's policy. There would be clear expectations and limitations set in the agreement, such as the contractor or their employees are not eligible for workers' compensation, and vehicle requirements. You could ask for like vehicle maintenance history and inspection reports, or perform your own inspections if necessary. Does anybody have anything they feel it would be beneficial to the group to share regarding that? Mr. Mike Gantic, if you're still here, I know you've had some experience with contractors in the past. Are you still on?
Yes, Tom. I think relative to insurance, those things are critical, and I think one of the things too to keep in mind, if you're able to hire some temporary employees, to understand what those ramifications are relative to the IRS and your HR requirements. And also it's important for whether you're hiring temporary employees or a contractor to make sure you provide orientation and training. And that an incentive is to pay for that. Have your contractor pay them, come in for a good training session, not just here's the keys, the plow, this is how you do the plow up and down. You really go through the whole situation. You're setting your expectations. I think it's important too to have a contractor go over the route, because obviously every route has its nuances, whether it's a fire hydrant or somewhere you want to push the snow that doesn't inhibit a sidewalk or something like that, or where there's icy spots where you've had complaints in the past. But I think it's important, to codify those things too with your contractor in a sense, so they have a map maybe of where those unique features are. But I think critical to both in census, getting somebody who wants to work is to pay for the training. And so that they know that they're not on the hook for that, and you're paying a contractor's guys for a day to sit down and learn about what your expectations and what you need to do in your community. So I think that in and of itself is something that your insurance carriers will look to as well to make
sure. You lost your audio, Mike.
Or contractor. So that's what I would add to that subject. Thank you, Tom.
Mike, just from my personal experience, when I was in the private sector, the contractor I worked for plowed for the town of South Windsor, and the town provided a town two-way radio and a town GPS unit. And now looking at that from a municipal standpoint, I think that's a fantastic idea, not only for you to be able to directly communicate with the contractor, but to kind of keep track of where they are. Is anybody else doing that, or what are they? How do they handle their contractors and keeping them in check?
Tom, we're doing exactly that as well. We provide them two-way radio communications and GPS devices, so we're able to track where they've been, and we're able to have immediate communication with them.
Fantastic, thank you. There was a quick discussion in another meeting that I was in. I think it was Todd Law from VDOT had solicited the National Guard for assistance during snow plowing operations. I've since heard he was unsuccessful at obtaining their services. Has anybody else thought about reaching out to them, or has reached out to them and been successful, or not so much? It's an interesting avenue, I guess, to kind of go down. One thing I wanted to mention too, Donna and I spoke about it yesterday, and if Regina or Donna, you want to drop the link for the CT listserv in the chat box, that's a great way. If there's people here that aren't on either the Connecticut listserv or their own state listserv program, it's basically an email system where all the municipalities can share information back and forth, post a question, retrieve answers. It's a fantastic resource. So I think we're going to put a link down there.
Hey,
Connecticut.
Tom, for anyone for the Connecticut listserv, I'm putting Mary McCarthy's email address as she actually adds people to it. So if someone wishes to be part of the listserv and they are not for the Connecticut Public Works, you can email Mary and we can get you on it today.
Marilee, would you like to share New Hampshire's? And I know we have our colleagues from Vermont, and if you could put into the chat box, if a municipality is on the call today that would like to be added, that is not already on your email distribution list or listserv, I would encourage you to put your contact information. Thanks, Marilyn.
Yeah, I think those who are on the call from New Hampshire are probably already receiving pw.net, but we do have that as our listserv, so reach out if you're not on it.
Right. It's a fantastic resource to share questions and challenges and get solutions, definitely.
Yeah, it really is beneficial. Yeah, of course. You know, even if it's just something to refer to, you know, your friends in the business, there's a lot of knowledge out there. So you can post a question and get quite a few different answers and opinions on that particular question. I had a couple polling questions, but we don't have a poll set up.
Really quick, Tom, we have some hands raised. Lisa's first.
Okay, hey, Tom, when you talked about the National Guard and using them for services, I think we have to be in the state of an emergency to utilize them, but I'm not sure. Maybe John Lawler would know.
You're absolutely right. There needs to be a declared state of emergency. And quite honestly, I've got a really good working relationship with the National Guard here in our state. And I'm sure all the New England states operate very similarly. Their resources are limited. To ask them to bring in trucks and loaders, they tend to not want to commit to a particular community, whereas they'll provide logistical assets more freely because they serve more of a regional effort. But when I've asked them for a truck or a loader, they'll try to find other alternatives rather than to do that, because they have to move that equipment to the specific location and then it becomes tied to that one community. So don't be surprised if they frown on that. If there was a legitimate concern and there was flooding and it was an isolated community, then they would bring all those assets to bear. But when there's a storm that covers a county, 2 counties, 3 counties, and there's a lot of communities involved, don't be surprised if they're going to try to hold back some of those resources, at least from the equipment standpoint.
Yeah, I'm not sure if the idea behind it was to solicit for equipment or just for operators, and whether it would. I guess it would be directly through the National Guard. That's a great point though, because I'm sure they want to concentrate more regionally than in a specific town. So thanks, John.
And we have Craig's hand up.
Craig, go ahead.
Just to touch base on the vendors' availability and why they're not responding. I have a local vendor that's very large and well known throughout Connecticut. It's called O&G. Now they're having the same issues as every municipality. They cannot find drivers or drivers that know how to snowplow or are interested in snow plowing. A lot of them like their winters off and do not want to come in and snowplow. So, and they also are concerned that they cannot meet our demands. So if we say we need this many vehicles, they don't want to commit not knowing they have the employees. So even the larger contractors are having issues getting employees as well.
Thanks, Craig. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, I have a question for, the towns out there. Are towns and cities considering reprioritizing some of their levels of service? For example, maybe shifting people that might be trying to clear sidewalks and buildings and shifting them to the roads during a storm because of shortage of drivers, maybe having those people drive trucks or smaller vehicles, pickups and things that may not require a CDL.
I can speak to that a little bit. We have custodians that will put in pickups and stuff like that to keep things moving along. Anybody else want to chime in?
Michael, we have a parks department and we have also Board of Education maintenance department. They're separate from our regular public works department. But as you know, during the larger storms, schools are closed. You can't get to the school if the street ain't open. So we would utilize their staff. Obviously the parks are closed, so we'll utilize their staff and we'll use whatever custodians are available, if that helps you out.
That's great, thanks. I guess something that I don't know if it was mentioned earlier or not, the Board of Ed is another opportunity. There might be people there you don't even realize might have CDLs and stuff like that. So it could be a potential avenue for operators. Anybody else want to share some information?
And we also use our maintenance tradesmen as well, if we have to, because there's a lot of tradesmen that plow and know how to plow as well.
Okay. Great. Any other hands up, Regina?
No, we're good. And it looks like we got Connecticut, New Hampshire, Vermont, information in the chat box for the listserv.
Fantastic. Yeah, I highly encourage everybody to sign up for their local listserv. It's really a great resource. If there's no real other topics, I'm out of persuasive information to stir up discussion. So, anybody
Now's your
want to
chance.
chime in before we call it?
Yeah, does anyone have any other questions or burning topics you want to talk about while we're all here together? Feel free
Yeah, I
to.
would like to ask a question. Does any other town or local municipality have issues with tire disposal? Because that's been a big issue in the city of Bridgeport.
We have a vendor come and take ours. We have a 30-yard dumpster with a cover on it that we just fill all year, and we call our vendor, and they send a box truck out, and we transfer the tires into the box truck, and they take them away for us. I don't know what anybody else does.
Yeah, we do.
Go ahead.
We do the same thing, and I guess the price that you pay may vary slightly depending on how far, Craig, you are away from where that vendor is located. I think we use Empire Tire, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, John, we obviously a lot of Connecticut cities and towns usually refer to the state bid and probably use Don Stevens because they're one of the lowest bids on the state bid. Unfortunately, they're still pretty expensive, so we reached out to Enviro. I don't know if you're aware of Enviro, but they have a yard located in Bridgeport where they accept our loads, and you'd be surprised. We bring a 40-yard container of tires weekly.
Wow.
That's
Craig, what do they charge you by the unit price? Is it by the tire or the ton?
They charge us by container.
Okay. Yeah, I'd like to get some of that information from you because it may prove to be more cost effective than what we're doing, although we got a pretty good price now. But we do produce a lot of tires as a community, so because we run our own transfer station here.
Yeah, so do we. So that's the issue. We do run a lot of tires. It's not just residents bringing in tires, but when you're in a larger city like Hartford and Bridgeport, we have a lot of tires that get dumped in lots and on dead ends or at old factories that we have to pick up.
Real quick before we wrap it up, I just thought of something else we could possibly discuss. If for anybody that's renting equipment for snow removal operations, have you seen any issues with your vendors, your loader vendors for winter equipment rentals? No.
Actually, the city of Bridgeport has a good relationship with Volvo. So we purchase all our loaders through Volvo. Every year they do provide us 3 rental leases for 3 months, and it's a pretty good deal because when you have these larger storms, sometimes the only thing pushing the snow is a loader.
Yeah, absolutely. We actually something I'll mention too before we wrap up. We have a vendor in Ellington that does all of our school parking lots. We treat the lots, but we have a contracted vendor do all the snow removal, and because we're contracted to them, we're able to use those vendors for on-road snow removal, if necessary. If it was a large storm, we could say, hey, the schools can wait. We need you guys to go open some roads up or whatever the case may be. So that's an idea for some of you maybe that are using some vendors for different operations.
And one idea maybe for your smaller towns or even the larger cities, you might have a mall or a large complex there, and you'll see a loader with a big box on there. You might want to contact those companies because they already have their equipment in your town. So they'll say, oh, I'll pull that loader and do those couple lots for you, whatever the case is. So that's an idea. If you see a loader or piece of equipment already stationed in your town at that parking lot, that's an idea. You could call them and say, your loader's already here. Can we work out something where you help us out with an emergency or something?
Yeah, good idea.
Hey, Tom, we have one last question before we finish up here. Lisa from Vermont, Do you plow all the sidewalk paths or just some? How do folks determine which ones to plow or not plow?
I know in Ellington, we have a list of specific sidewalks that the DPW maintains. All other sidewalks are owned and, well, not owned, but maintained by the abutting property owner. So, which of course can create a little bit of problems because the homeowner could say, well, why are you clearing my neighbor's sidewalk, but you're not clearing my sidewalk? You know, so that could create a problem. I'm not sure if everybody else does the same or if they do all those sidewalks or what.
For a large city, obviously, we can't maintain every resident's sidewalk. So we only maintain city sidewalks. Homeowners are responsible to maintain their own sidewalks.
So is there a process as to which ones the city or the town is going to maintain?
It's an ordinance that requires all homeowners to maintain their sidewalks.
Yeah, we have an ordinance as well, but it doesn't specify which sidewalks. So, you know, there's some new sidewalks that we've put in, and part of the approval process was that the town will maintain those sidewalks after the installation. And then there's obviously existing sidewalks that we've maintained in the center of town and stuff like that, so the property owners wouldn't have to take care of those. And then kind of as you get into the outskirts of town, it becomes the homeowner's responsibility. But nothing written.
Thank you.
Yep. Anybody else? Well,
Great job today. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot, John.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate.
Go ahead. I was just going to thank you so much for doing such a great job moderating this and for stepping up when we needed you. And I also wanted to just take a moment to thank Regina. All year long, she has led this effort and has done an amazing job being our producer and has made every speaker feel cared for and comfortable. And I really appreciate her work on this. And she's looking forward to next year's as well. So thank you all. Have a wonderful holiday. Thanks for joining us. We look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks for the conversation. Thanks, Tom.
Yes.
Great job.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, everyone. Have a good holiday.
Stay safe.
Take care.
Happy
You
holidays.
too.
Christmas.
Thank you.
Great job, Tom.